Welcome back. Thanks for being here. Happy Moon Day. Although it is kind of bittersweet since this was the last episode in this season 3, arc 3. I will say it was not as overall as emotional or intense as maybe the last episode. It definitely did have its moments. Of course, I'm talking about SMC 39, Act 38, Infinity 12, Infinite Journey. Of course, we had the recap of Super Sailor Moon throwing herself into the void, Saturn being awakened, everyone watching, and, you know, realizing this is the end. And even in that recap, it was very goosebump inducing in my opinion. I thought it was interesting though, hearing Master Pharaoh 90 referred to Sailor Saturn as a huge negative aura, the greatest sleeping power, light bringing the destruction like he knew her. I thought that was kind of interesting. The whole time, you know, it seems like Super Sailor Chibi Moon is screaming for Sailor Moon. And, you know, in that moment, it was intense. And it was just funny to me because you have that intense moment and then it just goes to the opening song and it's like, oh, okay, it's just like, we're stopping right here. So when we see, they flash to Super Sailor Moon unconscious in the void, you see everyone really starting to understand, okay, this is it. This is the end of the world as we know it. And Super Sailor Chibi Moon is still in Tux's arms and she's screaming for Sailor Moon again, and you see Super Sailor Moon's brooch react and she awakens, calling on the chalice, and her light, her power kind of clearing out Master Pharaoh 90 but not really destroying him. And in that moment, I thought it was interesting because you see Sailor Saturn looking at Super Sailor Moon doing all of this, and you see her with this not so trusting, almost like skeptical, like almost not nice look in her eye, which I thought was really interesting to me. Yet on the flip, everyone else, all the other Senshi are looking very relieved, and then their uniforms kind of change slightly, and then you just kind of see Master Pharaoh 90 kind of like struggling. He's just reaching for the tower star system, and he's like, I just want to go home. All the while, you see Sailor Saturn kind of looking at this whole event going on, and she says that, you know, she is mesmerized by the agony at the moment of destruction as she kind of goes in for the kill for Master Pharaoh 90, as everyone kind of realizes in that moment that she will be sucked into the void with him, but she tells them, you know, not to fear, that hope and rebirth always began with the end, telling Super Sailor Moon that she is the one that brings them this because she released the power of her silver crystal and the chalice. Sailor Saturn can save the planet. She is the guardian who vanquishes destruction and death to enable rebirth. The sacred power of this chosen land, which the Silver Millennium will eventually be built, is your ally. I really liked that whole bit of dialogue there. I really enjoyed that part. Then as Sailor Saturn's kind of going to do her thing here, we see Sailor Pluto call on a new attack. She calls on Father Kronos to do the Dark Dome close. She wants to close off that power to the earth. So, and I have to say in that moment, I personally got a little emotional. That was kind of a beautiful moment. And in all of this craziness, you still see Super Sailor Chibi Moon, you know, she's just totally full on crying for Sailor Saturn in this moment. And again, it was a bit of emotion at that moment. Then you see an orb of light fall into Super Sailor Moon's hands, and she clutches it to her chest as she's recalling Sailor Saturn's last words to her, and Super Sailor Moon transforms into Neo Queen Serenity. The Heart Moon Scepter forms in her hand. She starts restoring the whole city. Tux realizes that in that moment, she is the vision he had been having of the Messiah, that it was her. And that was just a beautiful moment, I have to say. And then you see a light kind of shine down and you just hear a baby crying, and oh my god, that moment got me. It was really amazing. It was just like, more emotion in that moment, I think. And then, of course, the outer Senshi run to the baby, and Michiru, of course, is the first one to pick up the baby, and they realize that, of course, it's Hotaru, aka Sailor Saturn reincarnated. And, you know, so naturally they decide the three of them will be her parents and raise her. So that was just such a great, I just love that. And, you know, Neo Queen Serenity turns back into Super Sailor Moon, and the Inner Senshi are all together again with Tux, and they, you know, ask, who is the baby? And of course, Uranus, without really answering, says they must leave. They have been given the gift of new life due to precious her, meaning Super Sailor Moon, Neo Queen Serenity. And then Super Sailor Chibi Moon asks if she'll, you know, see them again, and Sailor Pluto kind of kneels down, and they have this really cute moment and says, of course, because we're friends, because we're Sailor Guardians. And that was just a really beautiful moment too. And then Sailor Neptune says, we really loved you, little princess. We'll be sure to come back to you. And then she gives her, Neptune gives Super Sailor Chibi Moon her mirror. And in that moment, it was so funny because right in that moment, I had like, to me, I was thinking of Pegasus and Helios. I was like, Pegasus, Helios, that's what reminded me of that, the mirror. So I was like, interesting. But, you know, before they know it, you know, the outer Senshi is leaving with the baby without actually saying that it's Hotaru, at least actually saying it to the inner Senshi. It was all kind of understood. And in their disappearing, before they disappear, they just kind of tell Super Sailor Chibi Moon to become a stronger guardian by the next time they meet, and to protect our princess. Then, of course, they vanish in a cloud of rose petals. Then kind of totally switches gears here, and you see Chibiusa kind of talking to a letter, so to speak, to her parents that she's a full-fledged guardian and she's coming home. Then we are with all the girls in Usagi, happy that they are all in high school now, and Usa's very happy, and all the girls are kind of like knocking her down about how, oh, it's amazing you got into high school, and maybe it was a silver crystal, maybe, you know, it was a grading era. You know, it was very, very reminiscent of the silliness that they had from OSM. So, I mean, it was very cute, because then Mina comes up to her and she's like, oh, I'm happy we're in high school together. We can take makeup exams together. So again, it was very much reminiscent, because then they go on to talk about how they're going to, you know, Mina's going to work to become a star, and, you know, Mako's going to do a cooking club, and you know, Amy's going to do computer club, and Ray's going to do archery, and Usagi's going to do manga and illustration so she can read more manga. And Mina's like, yes, reading manga is way more important than studying. So again, it was very, very, very reminiscent of old school, you know, original Sailor Moon. Then again, it kind of a little bit shifts gears, because you see Mamoru show up, and he's looking very cool and very suave, and they're like all saying goodbye to Chibiusa because she's going home, you know. And then you see Chibiusa in the middle of Mamo and Usa, and they're holding hands, hashtag cute little family, and Diana's on Chibiusa's head, and Diana says, Princess, thank you for all you've done. And that Luna and Artemis stayed at Command Central because they were too sad to say goodbye. And they get to this part because they're going to go send Chibiusa home. And of course, the solar eclipse is happening, and Chibiusa is looking through the viewfinder at the moon starting to cover the sun, and she hears a bell. And I was like, oh no, yes. And then Usagi hears a bell, and then they both start turning around, and all you see is like them with getting covered in rose petals, and that's it. That's the end, y'all. So the end song went back to the first one, Eternal Eternity, and I was watching to see if they would do the same thing that they did on the first arc, the first 2 seasons, with the see you soon at the end, and they didn't, which makes me very sad. But with the way that they ended this episode, with it being such a kind of a cliffhanger, like, oh, we're turning around to nothing, that's it, I have to say that has to be their more subtle way of saying, yeah, we'll be back. And I hope this isn't wishful thinking. I don't think that it is, because this really was kind of a cliffhanger. So Yeah, hopefully that was our very much more subtle way of saying see you soon, like at the end of the last one. And the only other quick note I can say, which was interesting, that maybe also makes me think there will definitely be the next arc will be happening, is also because if you recall, we never saw Uranus's world-shaking attack in this arc at all. So I am saying that's another sign that we will get the next arc, because we have to see world shaking at some point. So it's got to be in the next arc, right? But yeah, that was it. These 13 episodes were pretty awesome, and I hope you enjoyed all my videos and this one. And if you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one, because there's going to be the next arc. I can feel it. Have a great day. Happy Moon Day, Moonies. Until next time.